Bitcoin is right now approaching key resistance here on the top side, and the next move, in my opinion, is very clearly, of course, to the downside. I'm going to discuss this with the liquidation heat map, with the funding rates, the open interest. Also, we have some interesting news on the Clarity Act coming up and some much more important information. So let's start with Bitcoin. Quickly here, brief overview. We're in a bear market, guys. We know that, right? We've been going down since 126,000 in stages. Of course, we did the first stage breakdown, second stage breakdown, and right now, if you look at history, you can see that history is rhyming. We're having an accumulating upwards phase, and most likely we'll have a larger breakout to the downside. Everything being supported by the $60,000 region, of course, which has acted as support here on the breakdown, of course, and very importantly, also acted as support in 2024. You can see all of these times when the $60,000 level has acted as major support. So it is a very important level to hold. Now let's zoom in a bit for Bitcoin and see what's really happening. Well, guys, you know that I've been trying to short here from this level at $67,000 and mentioning this is a key level for us to potentially enter short positions from. We did eventually reach that target after being supported by this level to look out for. $63,800, $63,900, perfect resistance turned into perfect support. Then we broke down. Right now, again, we're holding above this level and looking also at this green line. This green line has been acting as support here, essentially on this upward move, and now is acting as resistance. And this is what I discussed yesterday, right? That we might go up here. We had liquidations all the way to like $65,000, which you can see right here. And yesterday I discussed that we are most likely going to grab that liquidity. It's going to act as a trap. We grab that liquidity just like we did right here. Look at this. Once we move down, we were building up liquidity on the upside here. We grab that liquidity of people who are like shorting the markets as it goes down. They have liquidation prices above them. We grab the liquidity and make a bigger move to the downside. And the same thing I think is happening, and the same thing is basically playing out right now. Look, we grab the liquidity, and now the big next level to look out for is, of course, the liquidity that we're building up to the downside. And that is a liquidity that has been there for quite some time. And there's two major levels to look out for. There's first of all of this, the $60,000 to the $62,000 region, and then also a big chunk here at $60,000, which of course coincides perfectly with our major support, the $60,000. So what I think will happen most likely now going forward is that we will go down from here, grab the liquidity at $62,000, which will lie just below this level of support, and then go further down to the $60,000 region, which I think will be a major level of support. I mean, look at this. All the spot buying is happening at $60,000. And I think we can see a bigger bounce from here to the upside again. Now, I want to discuss quickly the funding rates and also the open interest. Now, what can I see here? Well, I can see that funding rates are mostly positive. So most people are longing the markets, while open interest is not really making a clear move in any direction. So what is this telling me? It's telling me that this move here, the recent move to the upside for Bitcoin from $60,000 to $67,000 is mostly people buying on spot, because open interest is telling me based on derivatives and based on like people who are using leverage and derivatives. But right now I can see there's not much increase in positions or decrease in positions really. So it's mostly spot buying or people who were shorting the markets before, they're closing their positions right now. And what I want to be seeing in order to see a breakout is I want to be seeing conviction for derivatives. So I want to be seeing new derivative positions, so positions of leverage to be opened on the market. And this will of course increase the open interest. And I don't see that right now. So I don't see much conviction here right now. I just see people who are either buying on spot or people are closing their short positions. And what I want to be seeing, of course, is if I want to see price go in one direction, I want to be seeing open interest accompanying this to have a really sustained move. But what's happening right now is that if we see a rejection here, while funding rates are very positive, so people are really longing the markets, this is a build up towards potentially a move to the downside, a squeeze back to the downside to $60,000. Because usually we know that when everyone is longing the market, we usually go in the other direction. And when if I zoom out a bit to the daily here, what I want to be seeing usually in a bear market bottom is very negative funding rates. So let's go to the last bear market bottom, 1 second. Here we go, November 2022, approximately this time. We can see towards the bottom, everyone was shorting the markets. Let me highlight it here. These are the funding rates. We had very negative funding rates. So everyone was shorting the markets at the bottom, believing we continue to go down. And if I see that much short conviction, that's usually a bullish sign that actually this is the bottom and we go up from there. and right now we see mostly positive conviction. So this makes me believe we have another leg to the downside, of course. And just for everyone to remind you guys again, we usually see the Bitcoin bottom 12 months from the top, from the peak to the bottom 12 months, so about 365 days. And the same pattern played out the last 2 cycles, and even the cycle before that, it was about 400 days. So we usually see another leg to the downside. I think we're gonna have another major leg to the downside, bringing us to potentially the level at around the $50,000 region. But if I draw the Fibonacci here from the bottom to the top, we can see that the golden pocket lies around about all the way to like the $54,000 region, basically to the bottom of this activity right here, trading activity, or potentially bringing us to this region right here. So there's definitely another major move to the downside. Keep in mind also that usually during bear market bottoms, if I look at the RSI, we usually create bullish divergences. So let's go to the last time. For example, we can see the RSI starting to go up, while price goes down. This is a bullish divergence. In a bear market, Bitcoin top, we usually see price, of course, going up and RSI starting to fall to the downside. We can see this happening right here. RSI starting to go down. So a bearish divergence. The same thing happened last cycle, right? Price went to the top here, while the RSI started to create a bearish divergence. And the same thing is happening right now in a bear market. We see bullish divergences, so price is going down, while of course we are seeing the RSI starting to go up. So we are there soon, but it's not there yet in my opinion. Also, if I look here at the weekly, I just want to quickly highlight that if I pop up the weekly moving average lines, we can see that Bitcoin usually finds a bottom between the 200 and the 350 weekly moving average lines. And last cycle, we found all the way the bottom at the 350. The time before that, we went to like the 300 weekly moving average line. And these also lie between $48,000 to $55,000, which is, in my opinion, a very good entry price to be entering Bitcoin for in this Bitcoin bear market, which will set you up very nicely for the next 3 years for the bull market. Now, keep in mind, the bull market usually does not, it starts here at the bottom. Like it starts about it starts about 12 months after the top. That's where the bottom is. But the exponential phase, and keep this in mind, the Bitcoin bull market only really has exponential phase towards the last stage of the bull market. And also, if you look at the halving events, which happen every 4 years, these are these orange lines that I drew. Usually we don't immediately go up after the halving, for example, and the halving is already well into the bull market. Look, well after the bottom. But after the halving, just keep this in mind, we usually go sideways for some time, and then we have this big breakout to the upside, because the halving, of course, means that the miners, they receive half the reward for Bitcoin whenever they mine Bitcoin, and this will create a supply shock. So now we are getting less supply of Bitcoins on the market for each block that is mined, and eventually the supply shock will translate into higher prices, of course, as demand either stays the same or increases and supply is reduced. Simple supply and demand will suggest that then we go up in the price. And this is what I want to go into next. So after the breakout, right, after the halving event, usually have some time where we go sideways, and then we have a breakout. So right here, the breakout happened here. You can see, obviously, the breakout happened right there, somewhere around this time. And here also the breakout happened somewhere around this time. And this is what this chart is telling us. This is the days after the breakout. So not the days after the halving, but the days after that breakout, which we see after the consolidation phase on the halving. And we can usually see that these are all the different Bitcoin cycles, that there's approximately between, let's say, 700 to approximately 900 days or 850 days after the breakout that we see a Bitcoin bottom every single time. And right now we are here. This is the red line. This is the 5th era for Bitcoin, the 5th cycle for Bitcoin, if you want to say it like that. We can see that we are right now at about like 760 days after that breakout that we have. So not after the halving, after the breakout. And usually this is the phase in the market where we find a bottom for Bitcoin. And more importantly, keep in mind, it's about 12 months after the peak, of course. Now I want to be discussing the Clarity Act, because White House official Patrick Witt says that they're aiming to pass the Clarity Act by July 4th. Then after that, we have 2 weeks where they are all on leave, but most likely it won't happen on that day, but we are very close to that. Now, what is the Clarity Act actually saying? Let me quickly try and recap it. So essentially, in order to be, the Clarity Act wants us for Bitcoin to be regulated, not by the SEC, but actually by the CFTC, by the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. And this is basically true if there is no more than 20% of any entity that holds a certain asset. Otherwise, it's going to be SEC. But of course, Bitcoin, that's not the case. Bitcoin is decentralized. And if it is decentralized enough, then it can be classified under CFTC. And we want to be classified under CFTC because then we have clear laws. Okay, this is a CFTC asset, clear laws which encourage major banks and pension funds to invest. Right now, if we're not sure if it's SEC or CFTC, we need that clarity really for major money to be coming also into Bitcoin. It's going to be good for the markets overall. It eliminates the risk of sudden hostile regulatory crackdowns on Bitcoin if it's classified under CFTC. It legally distinguishes Bitcoin from tokens that might be deemed illegal securities. Now, Bitcoin is clearly a decentralized asset. And why don't we want to be classified as a security, right, under the SEC? Well, first of all, decentralized networks have no central company to actually sign the paperwork because Bitcoin is not owned by any single entity. No paperwork can be signed, right? So it is clearly should not be regulated under SEC. Also, teams must file continuous audited financial reports for the government. So SEC, that's like if you have Apple or any other big company, they are classified under SEC, Securities Exchange Commission. And this is, of course, companies that have clear owners, right? But Bitcoin does not have a clear owner. So what I want to be seeing is that act to be signed. It's going to be very bullish for Bitcoin long term and gives a lot of clarity, which is what we want to be seeing. Now, I want to highlight this graph here. And this is telling us that usually we find a Bitcoin bottom when more than 10.5 million Bitcoin are actually in a profit. So more than half the supply of Bitcoin is either in a profit or a loss. So I mean in a loss. And right here, every single time when more than half of the supply of Bitcoin holders are in a loss, of Bitcoin is in a loss, then we saw that usually we find a bottom at that price point. So more than half of supply is in a loss compared to half of supply is still in a profit. That's when we find a bottom, and we just crossed here. So just now, more than half of the supply is in a loss compared to the supply that's in a profit, and that's usually when we find a bottom for Bitcoin. Now, finally, let me show you guys this chart, and this is just telling us the days until the next halving, and we usually see that we find the bottom for Bitcoin approximately like 400 days until the next halving, maybe 400 to 500 days. And this is always when we find this green, very green stage, and we're entering the stage right now. So we are close to the Bitcoin bottom. And of course, in my opinion, like I already mentioned, wait a bit more, wait for that one big breakout to the downside for Bitcoin, and that's when I want to be entering my long positions and my spot buying positions. And for Bitcoin here on the short time frame, like I already mentioned, I'm looking at the liquidation heat maps here and hoping for us to be going back to the downside, making a big breakout to the upside, and that's when I want to be entering my short positions from. I'm not going to be entering right here because yes, we could still make a break to the upside, but I'm still hoping that we're going to go in this range, and that's when I'm going to be entering my short positions from. But I am strongly convicted that we're going to have another major breakout to the downside. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed it. See you next time, and bye.